You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, ep018. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Welcome to the Tricorder Transmissions. I'm Craig Cohen.
And I'm Jeff Hewlett.
And this week we are going to be talking about the classic original series episode, Arena.
Yes, we are. And this is a very iconic episode. So we are going to be recording an extended discussion of the Arena episode featuring a lot of in-depth conversation about the Gorn and some of the other concepts presented on the show. And during that special episode, we're going to have a special guest with us by the name of Jeff Ferry, who happens to be with us right now. How's it going, Jeff Ferry?
Very well. Good evening, gentlemen.
Nice to have you with us.
Yes. So what we're going to do is in the supplemental episode, we're going to sort of dig deeper into the episode beyond the commentary we normally do for the episode, and it should be a fun little discussion. And we felt that the introduction to this episode would be sort of a good way to sort of plug that supplemental episode and also bring Jeff on and sort of introduce him to our audience. Now, Jeff, you guys have actually podcasted together before, yes?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Was it one episode of the Flux Capacicast, or was it two?
I was on two.
I'm not sure if I was on the dinner with
one.
The Honeymooners one. That's I was on that one.
What was the other one I did?
And we did the one where we talked about DeLorean stories and
Burger King.
Burger
right?
King, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't on that one.
Okay, so we were only on one together then.
Yeah. So the Flux Capacicast is part of the Adventure Club podcast network, which is really, really cool. And it's basically it is the only podcast devoted to Back to the Future. So if you're listening to that, or listening to, a Back to the Future fan, write down Flux Capacicast and listen to this episode. And when you're done with that, go to your podcast device and look up that show. It's a lot of fun, and you'll get to hear Jeff Hewlett and Jeff Ferry podcast together in a completely different environment.
Yeah, it's a fun show to do. I had a really good time the two times that I was invited on. And, I told Guy Hutchinson, the guy who hosts the show, that anytime he wanted me to jump on, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to take part. It's a really good time.
Yeah, those are always fun to listen to. So what do we have Star Trek related to talk about in this intro with Jeff Ferry?
Well, I was having a talk with April Hebert, so the last week or the week before. We were talking about Arena. And, she brought up a really interesting point to me that I hadn't really thought about before. And I guess for people who have seen this episode, I'm sure most Star Trek fans have seen this episode multiple times. And one thing, and I started to think that, this is pretty true. I as many times as I've watched this episode, I think the Gorn really overshadows the fact that there are actually two alien races in this show. So you have the Metrons or the Metrons, which however the way you want to pronounce it, because it's pronounced two different ways on the actual episode. And they are actually the cause of Kirk and the Gorn captain being put into this gladiatorial combat. So there are, two alien races. And April had made a point to me that I hadn't thought about, is that she felt that the Metrons were the real villains of the show. Because the Gorn are essentially defending their own turf, or they thought they were defending their own turf, whereas, the Metrons were taking it upon themselves to be judge, jury, and eventually possible executioners of whoever the loser of this battle was.
Yeah, that is actually a really interesting point. And it's funny, this episode follows the Squire of Gothos in the running order. And, I never really thought about the similarities between those two episodes before, but in the Squire of Gothos, you basically have Trelane, who doesn't mind rolling his sleeves up and getting his hands dirty, and he's sort of a very powerful being. And then you've got the Metrones, who sort of prefer hanging back and watching two people get dirty and then cleaning up the mess.
I would say, if you wanted the next generation comparison, it is you just substitute the Metrons for Q and the Gorn for the Borg.
Yep.
The first time that he throws them right into the way of the Borg.
It's a really good point.
It's fault that they're in front of him and they attack them. They're not the bad guys.
It's true.
It's like throwing somebody in front of, like, if I took you and threw you over the fence at the zoo into the bear enclosure.
Yeah, it's not the bear's fault.
No, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So that is a good way to sort of look at the episode. It sort of puts the episode in a new light, and that is one of the cool things about, the original series and a lot of the Star Trek series is, there are different viewpoints you can watch them from, and it sort of adds, cool little insight depending on your perspective. And, having discussions like this sort of open up, the ways that you see an episode. So very cool. And that was awesome of April to share with us. And, very, very cool.
So, little light on the Star Trek news this week. So, not a heck of a lot to report on that one. So, you want to just jump right into the episode here?
Sure thing.
All right. So, Arena originally aired on January 19th of 1967. The remastered episode aired on October 21st of 2006.
All right, cool. And I actually have here the TV guide entry from the rerun of this episode, which was July 1st, 1967. And it reads, "The fate of the Enterprise hinges on the outcome of a personal duel between Captain Kirk and the lizard-like commander of an alien spaceship. On a barren asteroid, the unarmed Kirk must rely on his ingenuity to defeat his powerful adversary."
Awesome as always.
Yes. So are you ready to get into Arena, Jeff?
Yeah, well, definitely am. And Jeff Ferry will be coming back to join us for the extended discussion afterward.
Absolutely. I will see you on the flip side.
Awesome.
All right, perfect. So be on the lookout for that, folks. That will be later this week. And I guess we will start our Arena discussion in 3, 2, 1.
All right. And we are in orbit.
Yes.
We are in orbit around a green-looking planet. So yes, Commodore Travers. Is this the first time we've heard of a Commodore?
I think so. Yeah, we're getting some big introductions here. Within the last couple episodes, we had a pretty high-ranking Starfleet official in what the Squire of Gothos.
Yep. Yeah. And now apparently this guy, this Commodore Travers, is well known for his hospitality and his personal chef.
Yeah.
Rank has its privileges, eh?
Yeah, and McCoy seems very excited at the fact, the idea of eating non-replicated food.
He does, and I think we're gonna get another first here in a couple of seconds, as Spock and McCoy are having a little banter back and forth here. Let me, Dr. Essentialist, and here we go. You bet your pointed ears. Is that the first pointed ears joke?
It might be.
I don't recall hearing another one before that.
Yeah.
That could be the first actual McCoy pointed ears joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking earlier that we should have come up with a couple of running sort of things to tabulate as we went along in the series.
Probably should have. Did you notice how the music got a little foreboding before they stepped into the transporter there? Mm-hmm. A little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
To what was going to happen when they get down to the planet's surface here. So the remaster here looks a little bit different. So they've expanded a bit on the matte painting and added some more smoky effects going on with the devastation there.
Yeah. That's, a lot, of that subtle sort of, effects work that they did on the remasters.
Yeah, definitely. And another really good stinger, I think. They kind of led you, they led the audience down that happy path. Like, hey, we're going to see some enjoyment and merriment going on here with this Commodore with the personal chef, but and right then you beam down into complete devastation.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. So this episode was written by Gene L. Kuhn, who had done a lot of story work on the series as a producer, but this was his first stab at writing a teleplay, and mainly because it was just a lot easier for him to sit down and write something as opposed to try and work with somebody else's script.
Huh.
He wrote this really fast, turned it in, and it turned out that it was based unconsciously on a story that he had read 15 or 20 years earlier called Arena by Frederick Brown.
Oh, pretty cool.
So they called up Frederick Brown's agent and said, hey, how would you like, or how would Frederick like to have his story adapted for Star Trek? And I guess the money was right, and he was agreeable. Who knows what would have happened if he said no? We probably wouldn't be watching this episode right now.
Probably not. And we probably wouldn't be wondering why they're taking cover in such a wide open area that really wasn't a good spot to take cover in.
Yeah. And here we have a red shirt.
Yes, we do. And this is leading up to probably one of my favorite red shirt moments in any Star Trek episode. But we got a couple more minutes to wait before that happens. So we're seeing a battered survivor here. Yeah. So someone amazingly has survived this heavy bombardment that's happened here.
And the one interesting thing, and it's probably a direct result of the budget of this show, but there's no other dead bodies around.
No, there aren't. So another revelation that'll be a little further explored and then completely dropped a little bit later was the fact that the communications that had been coming in that drew the Enterprise to Cestus 3 were faked.
Yes.
So we don't know by whom, and we don't know how. And I'll save my other big burning question until we discuss this again later when they bring it back up.
Okay.
But, and here's my Fred shirt moment. He doesn't even get a full line of dialogue out. Vaporized. He's like, I see him. Oh, and he's done.
And he has the classic red shirt captain. I found something, or I see something, or over here.
Yep. But he went out well. He had a really good expression on his face. Yeah. So and the now we find out not only is the landing party under attack, but the Enterprise is also being attacked by another vessel.
Conveniently, yes.
Yes, conveniently, and they're firing, so they can't beam them up because they have their shields up.
Mm-hmm. And this is kind of cool because Kirk really shows his sort of devotion to the crew of the Enterprise and the Enterprise itself, where he basically says, you do everything in your power to take care of the Enterprise, even if it means warping out of this system. Exactly.
So, more of what makes Kirk. But another thing I really love about this particular sequence is not only is it Kirk being his traditional self, but you realize how truly badass of a captain he is, because he's actually commanding both the landing party in a combat situation and commanding the Enterprise via a communicator and telling Sulu what to do. He's like, okay, fire your phasers up there, use evasive action. He's going to tell him to fire photon torpedoes in a little while, all while he is trying to figure out how to keep the landing party safe and fight back against this unseen enemy. So that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
So they're going to lay down some fire here.
Yeah. And this is kind of cool. I mean, it's, we all know what lurks on the horizon. And if you don't, boy, are you in for a treat. But, so this sequence is kind of suspenseful in the sense that you don't know who their enemy is.
Right. And they keep the suspense going for quite a while before you actually find out who they're up against.
Yeah, I think it's around the 20-minute mark.
Yeah, it's a while in there. But here's some really cool combat moves by Kirk here. He's going to zigzag run so the mortars can't hit him, right? Then he's doing a little combat roll. Great acrobatics there. A little combat crawl there. Military crawl behind some debris. So Kirk's trying to make his way over to an arsenal. And now he's going to give some more orders to Sulu while he's actually in complete mortal danger. Mm-hmm. Hey, wait a minute. That guy next to Sulu looks a hell of a lot like Captain Pike.
Yes, he does. And do you know why?
Is he his twin brother?
No, this is something I didn't realize until I watched this episode for this record. But that is actor Sean Kenny, who played the injured and mangled Captain Pike in the menagerie.
Get out of here.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
And as Lieutenant DePaul here, he'll pop up again in A Taste of Armageddon.
Wow, that is awesome. That's really cool. So, they do anything necessary to protect the ship. So Kirk is telling him to leave orbit in maximum warp.
Yeah, and it's cool how Sulu does kind of like a gulp there. Knowing what that means. I thought that was a really cool little. I love keying in on like subtle stuff that actors do, and that's one of those Sulu moments that I really dig.
Yeah, because you really know, you really see that Sulu is concerned and he doesn't want to leave them behind.
Yeah.
But he has to follow his orders.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really have a lot of choice in this matter. So Spock is going to need to run out and join the captain here. So yeah, they got to get this guy off the planet too, because he's in bad shape.
Yeah, he got rocked.
Yeah, he definitely did. He's got radiation burns.
Yeah. Well, McCoy says what? He has a half hour?
Yeah, about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And Spock is able to detect on the tricorder that the unseen enemy, is moving.
Mm-hmm.
So and earlier he detected that they were cold-blooded. So can the tricorder detect body heat?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, he must be able to. Check this little mortar Kirk got.
Yes. It's got like these
pellets.
Cool little shiny blue spheres.
Yeah, and another moment just passed, and I wish I could have said something while it was happening, but another first just happened. So the Gorn, the unseen enemy, had somehow able to lock on to Spock's tricorder and overload it and make it explode remotely.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And I think that's another cool little detail that comes into play later because, I think on the surface a lot of people dismiss the Gorn's intellect, if you will.
Well, you got to think if the Gorn are capable of building spaceships and these weapons, that they're not stupid. I mean, they're a pretty advanced species.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little more that'll come out later on about the Gorn, but you have to assume that they're capable of waging war.
Yeah.
And here we go. Kirk is going to fire this mortar, which is a really interesting explosion too here, which is like it's like a phaser explosion. It's like
it pretty much rocks things.
Yeah, and I think that took care of their little problem for the time being.
Yeah. The other cool thing about this sequence is it seems to cut back and forth between location on location shooting and shooting on a set. And I think it blends together pretty well.
It does. If I'm not really paying close attention, I don't really notice it.
Mm-hmm. I think the episodes where they went on location, they're always kind of neat for me because the studio work makes complete sense because they're on alien worlds and, you can forgive a lot of that. And, watching the remasters, a lot of times they forgive things for you.
Yeah.
But, seeing stuff that's actually was filmed on a practical location as well is kind of neat to see. And it kind of just adds like sort of an openness to the scene.
Yeah, it certainly does. So now we've gotten back to the ship.
Yep.
And we're going to get a little more of a reveal about what really happened. So there's space normal speed again, by the way. They came in at space normal speed.
Yeah.
And just seemed to attack for no apparent reason. This guy is really disturbed.
Yeah, he's really putting it on.
Yeah. Well, everybody that he knows just got whacked.
Yeah.
He's got some melted candle wax on his face or something there.
Yeah.
So he's got
You
radiation
think McCoy
burns.
would have given him like a sedative of some kind?
You would think.
Just to calm him down a little bit.
Just a tad, but so they attempted to surrender.
Yeah.
And the Gorn didn't even let up. Just kept blowing the place up.
Now the thing that I wonder here, and we're kind of jumping ahead of ourselves here, but how long had they been established on Cestus at this point?
That's a good question, and I would assume not for long.
Yeah. So what did Starfleet build the colony and then they populated it?
I would imagine so. Well, Kirk called it, I believe, Earth Observation Outpost Cestus 3.
Yeah.
Earlier on, so it's definitely a small outpost, a small settlement. But they just mentioned again that that the communications that came to the Enterprise were not from Cestus 3. So that makes us wonder. So they must have been setting a trap. The Gorn must have been setting a trap for the Enterprise. But
why?
My question is not necessarily why, but how. Because if you see later on, you see the Gorn don't really speak much.
Yeah.
They need that universal translation device to speak. And when they do speak, it's kind of like this monsterish voice. So how could they possibly have faked those tapes?
I have kind of a sinister theory.
Really?
What if it was the Metrons?
Ooh, I never thought of that. That's a good idea.
They were like, hey, we want to sort of have these two species duel, but we can't really just drop two of them onto a planet and go at it. We have to have a reason to do it.
Wow, that's a really good thought. You blew me away right there. I did not even think of that.
Mm-hmm.
That
was kind of my potential takeaway, but it adds kind of a sinister motive to the Metrons.
It certainly does, and you don't really get that feel for them without that kind of a thought attached to it. But so did you know this was another moment here with Kirk and Spock talking about chasing down the Gorn ship, and Spock is kind of leaning towards not killing them and their sentient form of life, and he doesn't feel very comfortable with just chasing them down and killing them. But Kirk is holding them accountable.
Yeah.
For what they did.
And this is one of the only real issues I have with this episode is Kirk seems a little too driven. And you know what might have helped me believe this is if they had, maybe he finds in the rubble the remains of a mother and a child or something.
Yeah, well, the guy that they saved, he said they did have women and children.
Yeah, but I mean, Kirk not seeing that, I don't know. His reaction just seems a little severe for me because he puts the Enterprise in jeopardy at one point.
Oh, very shortly from here. So Kirk also just said a second ago that he wants a full record of this. So, and here we go. He just issued an order to warp factor 7. You see the everybody kind of turned around like, huh?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Warp factor 7?
Yeah, and one thing you'll notice is the bridge doesn't seem nearly as busy as it has in some other episodes.
No, it doesn't. And Spock just warned us that warp factor 7 sustained can be very dangerous. Yeah. And Scotty is corroborating that by saying either we'll catch them or we'll blow up in the process.
Yeah. But this also shows another sort of instance of the crew's dedication to their captain. As Kirk sort of pushes things, they all maybe look a little concerned, but they follow orders.
They do, and that is an important thing to keep in mind in future episodes when you run into other people from Starfleet who are in positions of command and make questionable judgments, and when you wonder why their crews go along with them. So you realize that this is almost a requirement of Starfleet to be that dedicated to your captain and following every order, no matter how irrational or crazy you may think it is. Mm-hmm. So Kirk is now, he's saying that they're the only policemen and the crime has been committed. And he is, and there is Spock is, very clear. Okay, I'm with you. Even though I disagree with you, I'm going to stick here with you and I'll be helping you. So the Gorn ship is now at warp 7 as well. Yeah. So they're pretty advanced, man.
Yeah, they've either independently developed warp core technology or purchased it from somebody.
Whoa, warp factor 8. Look at everybody spinning around. The heads are flaring. I'm surprised Scotty didn't shut that down. Yeah. Right away.
Well, thankfully, things will be shut down in a moment.
Yeah, we'll get another one of those great camera shake shots where everybody's holding on for dear life as they're stopped mid-warp. So pretty cool. Here's a little exterior shot of the ship flying by. You know, I really had wished that, and I know it was a budgetary constraint back in the 60s, but I really wish they had shown the Gorn ship a little bit.
Yeah.
That would have been pretty cool. I mean, we see in the remastered version, you see a little tiny spec version of it in the viewer, but you really can't make it out very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wish they would have shown the Gorn ship, you know, in some sort of a combat scenario. They're running away from the Enterprise or whatnot. Would have been pretty neat to see.
Yeah. The Gorn as a race seems a little underutilized.
That was something that I was going to bring up later on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think there's any argument that the Gorn is one of the most iconic alien villains of the original series, and it's disappointing to me that they weren't used more.
Yeah,
I understand that it's, you know, they had the one rubber suit and it was tough to wear, and I can understand that it would have been very difficult or budgetarily impossible to have multiple Gorn at the same time. But, you know, regardless of that, I really wish they would have shown up on other series more.
I was going to say, you know, come, you know, the Next Generation, I'm surprised there wasn't, you know, thought of you know, having a Gorn episode. You know, I mean, they did you know, like Deep Space Nine did their Trouble with Tribbles episode. Most of the shows did their Mirror episode. You know, so it just seems like the Gorn would have been, if I was writing for one of those shows, I would have been like, all right, how we fitting the Gorn in?
Oh, heck yeah, man. Because the shame of it is, I mean, they really only appeared 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Once in the original series, once in the animated series, and then once on Enterprise.
Yeah.
And it's so severely underutilized, in my opinion.
Yeah. But it also kind of, you know, points to how iconic of a character it is. With minimal appearances, it's probably one of a handful of things that people remember from this show.
Oh, absolutely. And multiple action figures have been made of the Gorn. So, you know, it had an impact.
Yeah, and we're close to seeing him now.
We are very close to seeing him now.
Yeah. And
we're also very close to our first experience with the Metrons or Metrones. So there's 2 different pronunciations that happen on this show. So the Metron, they call themselves the Metrones.
Yeah.
But Spock and Kirk call them, they call them the aliens call themselves the Metrons.
Yes.
And Kirk and Spock seem to call them the Metrones. So a little bit different pronunciation here.
Yeah, and they've basically been halted to a stop.
And there's the Gorn ship in the viewfinder. It looks almost like Reliant in a way, like looks like a Federation ship. It's kind of a speck. It's hard to make out, but you can kind of see there's the little nacelles on the top there. And so now we're completely shut down. Once again. Frozen in space. As is the enemy ship.
Which has to be terrifying.
Oh, I would think so. And, you know, and Kirk is you know, questioning everything here. He's going to start pressing buttons himself, trying to make the ship work again. But then, you know, no faulty circuits, just no power.
Yeah.
So the Metrones are pretty powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty powerful. But, you know, this isn't the first alien race we've seen that has this kind of insane overpower, godlike powers, right? I mean, you had Charlie's Guardians, right? They had this insane powers, and Trelane's parents had these insane powers. They were able to manifest things out of nothing and make things appear and disappear. And
yeah, there seems to be a lot of and then also the Telosians.
The Telosians. And, and Gary Mitchell, too. If they'd let him get to his full potential, he would have been able to do the same things. Oh, and here are the Metrones in multicolors on the viewfinder there.
Kind of psychedelic.
Yeah, I love the flashing lights on the bridge, too, as you can see the lights kind of pulsing up and down on the wall. So the Metrones, once again, another alien race that doesn't seem to like violence.
Yeah. So they're basically saying we got 2 warring factions here, and we're gonna solve this problem for you.
Yeah, and guess how we're going to do it. This is something we've never seen before on Star Trek and we'll never see again. Not gladiatorial combat. Yeah. Oh, and they just revealed the name of the other races, the Gorn, by the way. the Metrones actually refer to them as the Gorn. So now we know what they're called, but we don't know what they look like. You know, that's another question I have for you, Craig.
Okay.
So we haven't heard about this yet, but later on in Star Trek lore, we'll find out that the Vulcans have been traveling through space far longer than humans, right?
Yeah.
How did they not know who the Gorn were? How did Spock not know about the Gorn before this?
Yeah, unless Spock had just never been made hip to them.
Well, he knows every other freaking thing.
I know.
It seems weird to me that there would be a race in this part of space that the Vulcans had never encountered before. Just seems odd to me.
Yeah. So basically, they just laid out the terms. Each ship's captain's going to be beamed down to this asteroid. There will be no weapons, and whoever emerges victorious goes on their way. Whoever loses, their ship will be destroyed.
Ooh, great scream from Uhura there.
Yeah, and Kirk disappears.
Kirk has vanished. And we zoom in on Spock, who is raising his eyebrow. Then there's the reveal. I love the look on Kirk's face. That's a real what the F face.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's that remastered effect, man. Did you see it? And here it is again.
The Gorn blink.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, a very subtle little sort of addition that adds a lot of life to the Gorn.
Oh, it definitely does. And because the Gorn kind of has a little nod to his head there, but he blinks twice.
Yeah.
And now Kirk is really like unsettled. Like, what the hell am I looking at?
You got a great push in. And we're on location here at Vasquez Rocks, which is was partially used in Shore Leave.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful vista there. I mean, lovely looking rocks. I love this. The Gorn walks right over to this tree.
Yeah.
And rips off this huge branch, just like nothing. Rip.
And Kirk pretty much gets a
twig. I know.
And it's kind of cool here because Kirk instantly says, most of us are sort of repulsed by reptiles, but I have to understand that this is a highly intelligent being.
Yeah, I love this supplemental log.
Basically my equivalent on his starship.
Yeah, exactly. I love that little bit of narration there to kind of talk about what's going through Kirk's mind as he sees this what we consider a monster.
Yeah.
You know, a giant lizard, but you know, he's a starship captain. They've built starships and weapons, so obviously they're intelligent. They just happen to be a little slow. And they can take the double axe handle, man.
Oh yeah.
2 double axe handles with no ill effects.
Yeah.
At all.
The main guy in this suit, it took a couple of people to bring the Gorn to life, but the main guy in this suit was stunt player Bobby Clark, who had done work on Trek before, but this is clearly his most famous role. He also has a speaking role of a townsperson in the episode The Return of the Archons, so we'll have to look for him down the line. And he basically described this suit as basically a wetsuit that you would put on that had a couple of layers inside that added muscular, definition and whatnot. And then the head would go on separately. So very, very hot in there. Yeah,
very hot, very difficult to move. Did you notice when Kirk and the Gorn were locked in combat there and the Gorn had his arms around Kirk, just before Kirk boxed his ears, did you notice that the Gorn has a nose hair problem?
No.
He's got some nose hair sticking out, man.
That's great.
Oh, and check out this, picking up this giant rock. There's the nose hair. You can see it just sticking out there.
Yeah. The Gorn was created by the same guy that created the salt monster.
Yep.
Hua Chang, who did a bunch of work for Trek.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Clark was backed up by another performer, Gary Combs, who was recovering from an injury, so he was given light detail as the Gorn. And then Bill Blackburn, who was basically one of the most seen extras on this show, did a lot of the stuff where the Gorn wasn't required to do anything physical.
Oh, cool.
So, anytime you see the Gorn really, really doing some work, it's Bobby Clark, who I actually had a chance to meet a couple of years ago.
Yeah, you got to send me the picture so that we can put it up on the website.
Yeah, he was a very cool guy. And in addition to his 8x10, he gave you a little, like, sort of Monopoly-sized dollar bill with the Gorn's picture on it that he also signed.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool, man. So is this the first time we see these universal translator
recorder
devices?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think it's kind of neat that the Gorn can hear. Wait a minute. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
What's that?
Those are not Kirk's regulation Starfleet leather boots. Those are laced up shoes.
Yeah.
Where'd those come from? I love the shot of the Gorn listening in.
Yeah.
It's so cool, man. He's peeking over that rock, just listening in.
Yeah. You know what would have been a kind of a cool alternate way to tell this story?
What's that?
Is if you almost started with this scene. And we get jumped right, we sort of get dumped right into it. I guess if I was making the Arena movie, that's what I would do.
Constructive. Yeah. I really like that they give Kirk the chance to do these bits of narration during this. Mm-hmm. It really gives you a feel into how I don't want to say terrified, but he almost seems like he knows that without some sort of weapon or without some sort of apparatus, he's not going to be able to take the Gorn out. And
he's basically recording this as his last words.
Yeah, really, he's he knows that he's pretty much doomed unless he can make some serious magic happen here. Mm-hmm. So another really great Spock and McCoy moment going on here. McCoy visibly emotional about Kirk being gone, and he's really putting the screws to Spock here.
Yeah, and this was actually a series of scenes that were suggested by the NBC executive who was sort of the go-between between NBC and the Star Trek producers, Stan Robertson, who basically sent a telegram to Coon saying, after reading the initial outline, "My only concern is that in Acts 2, 3, and 4, Kirk and the Gorn are on camera most of the time. Even though the action is very thrilling, I'm of the belief that this could become repetitious to the viewer and result in a large tune-out." So it was decided to sort of cut away to the Enterprise at various points, which I think is a great decision.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's kind of cool to see a quote-unquote network suit, being creative.
Come with a good idea.
Yeah.
How random is that bamboo plant in the middle of those rocks?
Yeah. Well, that could also be because the Metrons basically told both of the combatants that all of the accessories you need to build a weapon are on the planet.
Oh, sure.
So that could have been dumped there.
Of course. And, the way that these diamonds are laid out, it looks kind of like they're placed there on purpose. But there's an interesting line here from Kirk coming up that I want to point out. So he just pointed out there's a large deposit of diamonds, beautifully crystallized, blah, blah, blah. Too small to be used as a weapon. But here comes a line that I find really intriguing. Mm-hmm. An incredible fortune in stones. So that says to me that stones still have some sort of monetary value in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something I didn't key in on.
Yeah, so there's still what he's saying is essentially if you could grab all of these diamonds off the surface of this planet, you could make some serious money back on Earth, right?
He could probably retire from Starfleet.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's widely known that in the era of Star Trek, money isn't really the goal of mankind anymore.
Yeah. So
interesting that he would say something like those stones have an incredible value.
Yeah. Well, I guess they would consider that an anachronism. What do they call those?
Anachronism.
Sort of something that's basically an error that's caused by the time the thing was made. Mm-hmm. It's a 60s mentality, not projected onto the Star Trek timeline.
Yep.
Yeah.
So here's another really great scene, too. You see the Gorn is fashioning a dagger, a pointed stabbing weapon. And this is a pretty ambitious stunt here. Kirk climbing up on this precipice.
Everything has to line up perfectly. First, he has to get up there. Then he has to unlodge this large rock. And then he has to assume that the way it falls directly in line with where the Gorn is.
Yeah, and you notice how long it takes him to move that rock? He's really selling the fact that that rock is heavy, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
And doesn't make any noise.
Yeah, which really puts over the Gorn, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, the Gorn's gonna pretty much take this like a champ.
Absolutely. I love this shot of the Gorn right here. He's looking up. He sees the rock coming. He's like, what the?
And he's like, I'm way too slow.
He's like, I'm just going to stand here and take it, man.
And I kind of like the satisfied little
look
grin
at the look at the smile. Yeah. He's like, I got you, son of a bee. Yeah, and the Gorn is there. Just you can see the little dagger sticking out.
Yeah.
So he took a hell of a hit there.
Yeah. So I guess we're wrapping things up now. Kirk beat the Gorn, and
pretty much done.
I guess this is where wait a minute. Only 33 minutes in.
Oh yeah, you almost had me there. I was about to tip my hand. So I'm gonna draw a parallel here that's not necessarily Star Trek related, but you know what this always reminds me of, and maybe it reminds you of the same thing. Mm-hmm. But the Gorn getting up here, ever so slowly getting up from a seemingly something that would seemingly cause him to be dead.
Yeah,
reminds me a hell of a lot of Jason Voorhees.
Oh, okay, I can see that.
Doesn't it? He's slow and he's methodical, and he's seemingly indestructible. And you can run as fast as you can, but he's going to catch up.
Yeah. And Kirk falls into a Gorn trap.
Yes, he does. And he wasn't paying attention to where he was running. Gets tangled up in some ropes here in a booby trap that the Gorn set. And there he is.
Yep. And here it is. And the Gorn comes over, stabs Kirk.
Slowly walking
credits.
Away.
End of series.
And little did they know that this particular moment would be immortalized in a Christmas ornament.
Yeah, very cool. And this is another one of those cut to commercial moments that is so great. It's an edge of your seat commercial break.
It definitely
if you were going to get up and go to the fridge and get some pop, you were staying in your seat.
Absolutely. And I love how the Gorn moves the rock so he can stab Kirk, giving Kirk a chance to escape.
He wants to make sure he can telegraph it, completely.
Yep. And here, all right. Gorn is apparently completely unhurt by that rock, by the way. He's just right into the camera.
Yeah.
Really. And, that was a shot that was also used in the preview for this episode.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and the thing that I find very funny about this is this episode took a long time before they revealed the Gorn. They were kind of keeping that at bay. They were holding it back, waiting for the big reveal. But in the preview that they showed the week before, they totally gave the Gorn away. He was in it.
Mm.
So if you'd watched the episode the previous week, you already knew what the Gorn looked like.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a big surprise. Even though the way they played the episode out, it seemed like it was supposed to be a surprise.
Yeah. If anything, that sort of creates like Hitchcock's rule of suspense versus surprise. So by knowing as a viewer what the Gorn looked like, you're going into this episode saying, oh my God, they have no idea what they're about to face. And it creates a level of suspense. Whereas a modern viewer, without seeing the trailer, might have more of a surprise reaction.
True. Mm-hmm. True indeed. That's a good analysis there.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure which I prefer.
I think I prefer the surprise reveal. I'm a big fan of the surprise reveal. I kind of like that. Where you don't know what's coming and they build it up and then they finally show it to you and you're like, oh, yeah, the heck is that thing?
Yeah, so we see that Kirk's taking note of a lot of the elements that are on the planet. He just discovered, I guess, some sulfur.
Yep.
So we're, I guess, more astute viewers viewers on maybe Spock's level, are putting together what might occur later on. And we also got a pretty good indication that Kirk's pretty hurt here.
Yeah, he is so hurt so badly that the Metrons are telling the crew of the Enterprise to prepare for whatever memorial services their culture prefers.
Yeah. And they're basically going to say, and you know what? We're going to let you watch it.
Yeah, and here we go again with this extremely detailed remote camera system that everybody seems to have.
Yes.
With great tight close-ups and good wide shots. And Oh, and watch the reaction of Uhura to the Gorn.
Uhura totally sells this.
Yeah. She
What
seems
is repulsed.
That thing? And Captain Pike is not too amused here either.
And even, I mean, if you key in on any actor there, if you look at Scotty or McCoy, they all really, there's a mixture of concern for their captain, but also sort of, a curiosity about this creature. It's all really, really great work. I mean,
absolutely. They all really sell it well. And I loved Sulu stood up and leaning on the console and gripped by what's going on the screen. Could you imagine if you were on that bridge and you saw, your captain face to face with a creature like that? Then it looks like there's no chance for him to do anything at all. Like you probably are convinced you'll never see him again. And you're going to actually have to watch him die on the screen. Up. And here we have the iconic voice of the Gorn.
Yeah. Who is Ted Cassidy, who we saw on What Are Little Girls Made Of, and also did the voice on the Corbomite maneuver.
Yeah. I love his dialogue, too.
Yes. I grow weary of the chase.
I love it. And there he is. There's a shot of him talking into the and his mouth's kind of moving.
Yeah, that's very close to the 8x10 that I had Bobby Clark sign.
I've seen that hanging on your wall in your place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, maybe I'll try and snap a pic of it that hopefully you can post up on the website.
Yeah. So this is actually a very important moment in this episode. We find out that the Starfleet outpost was in fact created in Gorn space.
Yeah, they were infringing on Gorn territory, and this sort of changes everybody's perception on things.
It certainly does.
This is another sort of story point that I take a little bit of issue to.
Really?
And hear me out here.
Okay.
This is pretty much what causes Kirk to decide what he does at the end of the episode. Yes?
It does. Yes.
And I really would have preferred to see Kirk make the decision he makes without this information.
Okay.
I mean, I think it changes the character. I'm not going to say it's like a Han Solo shooting first type of moment, but it just seems to me like we would have seen a more compassionate side of Kirk if at the very last minute, the cooler side of him prevailed and he said, you know what, I am not an executioner. I am not a judge. I will let the proper people that are responsible for deciding those things decide it.
Okay. I always kind of looked at it as an important life lesson for Kirk, actually. I kind of looked at it in a way where, Kirk is going to learn something very important here about, judging a scenario without all the facts first.
So don't rush to judgment is basically
right. I think that's kind of the lesson that he learns from this is, he's really quick to judge and rightly so. I mean, he had no way of really knowing the truth of the matter. And granted, the Gorn's actions are probably a little bit extreme for, the incursion that happened. It's not as if the settlers at that outpost were
military or
right. They weren't killing Gorn babies, right?
Yeah.
They weren't frying up Gorn eggs for breakfast. So, it was a little bit of an extreme, but, I guess I like to think of it that way, though, that Kirk is learning a little bit of a lesson, but I can see it both ways.
Yeah. No, that I understand that. And here Spock is now completely on board with what Kirk is doing, and he's basically spelling it out for us.
Yeah, and one of my favorite Spock lines that I unconsciously or subconsciously reuse in my life quite a bit is that that he's reasoned it out line. I love that. I just say it sometimes, and I don't even realize that I'm doing it. But
so this episode was directed by Joseph Pevney, who had pretty much a career that was pretty varied. He had done some directing for sales presentations, pilots, training videos. He had done some theatrical work, and no, that is completely wrong. He was an action director. I'm sorry. Yeah, he was an action director, but he was given a directive for this episode. If he turned it in on time and on budget, he would be given a $500 bonus.
Hey, nice.
and he hit his goal.
Nice.
Yes.
He did a pretty damn good job of it, I think.
Yes. He died back in 2008 at the age of 96.
Oh, well, he had a good long life, man.
Yeah.
That's a great age. So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you your opinion on this.
Yes.
If the universal translator is necessary for Kirk to understand the Gorn, why does the universal translator take on like the scary sounding tone when the Gorn is speaking? Wouldn't it just be kind of a regular voice, like Captain, I grow weary of the chase? Like why does it have to say, Captain, I'm weary?
Well, you have to
think
that, in the future that is Star Trek, if they created a universal translator now, that would be what they do. Yeah. But in the future that is Star Trek, they found a way to maintain your tone and your timbre,
right?
But in the language of the person that is listening to you. And
right,
now we have a race against time, another one of those classic Star Trek race against time.
If he has the time, Doctor, if he has the time, can he create this cannon, this gun? Mm-hmm. Quickly enough? Well, at the pace at which the Gorn walks, I think Kirk's got about a good 3 days to make that thing.
So the Gorn is still looking for him there, because there was that shot where the Gorn stopped and sort of looked to the left and to the right.
Yeah, well, he heard Kirk banging with the stick, and that's what gave away Kirk's position. So when Kirk was banging with that stick, that's when the Gorn kind of stopped and looked around. So Kirk kind of asked himself out there a little bit. He's like, I gave away my position.
Yeah.
And the Gorn is
but ultimately he needs the Gorn to come towards him anyway. So
of course.
The other cool thing I like is the little detail here with the rope tied around the bamboo.
Yes.
Which is it's a cool little detail. I mean, it basically is going to hold the bamboo together during the shot.
Right, during the firing of this. And here we go. Here's the Gorn kind of trudging his way down this mountainside.
Yeah. And I kind of like the arrogance of the Gorn here, too.
Oh, I do, too.
Yeah.
That's great. So here he comes. Slowly but surely.
Yeah, and Kirk's got, one shot here. He's got to line it up.
And did he pull it off? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, got a couple of diamonds stuck in him there, man.
Yeah, there's some Gorn blood.
And
the Gorns bleed red.
They do bleed red. And, I'm going to say something here that, we're getting close to the end of the episode, but a lot of people goof on this episode because, the Gorn is kind of rubbery and slow, and that they make fun of the fight scenes. But, I think the Gorn, for the time period, I think the Gorn looks pretty damn cool.
Oh, yeah. I agree. And I think, even removed from the 1960s, I think he looks pretty cool, because what's to say that the Gorn race doesn't just look rubbery?
Right, exactly. But I think that the costume itself, you think about it, it's 1967. I think that, back then, that was pretty good for television.
Oh, heck yeah.
For a short budget, I think they did a pretty damn good job. And I think the fact that he's so iconic of a villain, I think it speaks volumes.
Oh, totally. And then we have the moment where Kirk basically says, I'm not going to kill him.
Yep.
He was doing what he thought was right. And you can't make me.
Nope. And, and that's, I think that's that lesson that he learned, you need to be diplomatic when you have all the facts, even though he probably would have been completely justified in killing that Gorn captain. He says, you know what? We're gonna go ahead and I'm not gonna do it. But another thing he does here is that the Metron offers to destroy the Gorn's entire ship.
Yeah.
And Kirk says no.
Yeah. And that is a woman.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Played by a woman. Carol Shalin, who actually had a very interesting career directing sales presentations, pilot presentations, and training videos.
Oh, wow. What a coincidence.
Voiced, though, by Vic Perrin.
Ah, very good.
Yeah. Who was a voice actor. He provided the voice of the control voice on the original Outer Limits.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So a sci-fi connection there.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And basically, the Metron is saying, humans have potential. Maybe we'll come back and check on you in 1,000 years.
Yeah. And you know that it's not the first time, not the last time the Enterprise crew is going to hear they've got potential. Yeah. And Kirk is back, and the reaction is uproarious. Everyone is stunned and happy to see him back again. And notice how cleaned up he is.
Yeah, and also,
and he's got his boots back on.
Did he appear when he was when he was transported away? He was behind the console, right?
Right, and they put him back in front of it.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of, I wasn't sure if that was just a production flub or if the Metrons were like, hey, we don't exactly remember where he was standing.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but they were also very kind to give him comfortable shoes to wear while he was on the planet, and then put his leather boots back on when they put him back on the ship.
Yeah. Now, do you think that in addition to cleaning him up, they also tended to his wounds?
They must have, because he looks none the worse for wear. I mean, there's no scarring, no nothing. It looks like he hasn't even been touched.
Mm-hmm. And they are now, they're very, very far away from where this encounter happened.
Yep, they are.
And we also have a great McCoy moment where he doesn't say anything, but he just puts his hand on Kirk's shoulder. They exchange a glance, and McCoy smiles. Very, very cool little moment.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a good acknowledgement of how much McCoy actually cares for Kirk, more than just a commanding officer, more like a personal friend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so now that we are getting to the end of Arena, it is time to discuss whether or not we consider this an essential episode of Star Trek: The Original Series. Jeff,
I have an idea of what we can do for this.
Yes.
We're going to do something we've never done before for an essential vote. Right. I'm going to count down from 3, and we're both going to say whether or not it's essential at the same time.
Okay, on 3 or after 3?
After 3.
All right.
1, 2, 3. Essential. I don't think you could possibly say it wasn't.
Very cool. I mean, there's just it's such an iconic character. This is another one of those sort of cocktail party moments, in my opinion, where everybody knows the Gorn, so you have to know the Gorn too. And it also has some very, very cool character moments for Kirk.
Definitely.
And a lot of, just real interesting stuff going on.
Definitely does. And while we're on our way out here, I think it's really interesting to point out that we're seeing some stills in the credits from episodes that have not yet been aired. Yeah. So there's some from Space Seed, and there's what else? There's another one from there's another Space Seed. So you're seeing stuff that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
And I missed one of the previous ones I was going to point out, but so I thought it was kind of cool. They're interweaving scenes from episodes that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, they're kind of little teasers for oh, cool. I'm going to see some people in cryogenic chambers later on in the season.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of this episode.
Yep.
And I guess what we're going to do, since this is such an important episode in sort of Star Trek history, that later this week we are going to be taking part in a sort of a roundtable supplemental discussion of Arena.
Yeah, it'll be our first extended episode, and we're pretty excited to do this. So we've decided behind the scenes here that, when we reach these really strong moments in the series, that we're going to reach out to some people in our audience or fans or special guests we've had on previously to come on and share their thoughts and discuss the episode a little more in depth and some of the characters and concepts that happen. So that's kind of how we're going to approach this.
Yeah. So look for that later this week. And you will have the ultra complete Arena experience.
From our perspective.
Yes. Well, what other perspective matters?
Yo, all right. We'll go there. Oh, man. So, all right, man. So we'll see you guys later in the week.
Yes, take care, and thank you, as always, for listening.
Captain.
Who is this, the Metron?
This is your opponent, Earthling. I have heard every
right, what do you want?
I weary of the chase. Wait for me. I shall be merciful and quick.